James Carter, a janitor at Helix Innovations, moved through the expansive corridors of the tech firm with practiced ease. His mop swished rhythmically across the polished floors as he made his routine rounds, unnoticed by the busy employees who passed by in their crisp suits and buzzing devices. Though his job was to keep the building spotless, James's mind often wandered beyond the gleaming glass walls to the ideas and inventions that might be hidden within. That afternoon, James found himself drawn to a rarely used storage room tucked away near the building's east wing. The door, usually locked, had been left slightly ajar. Curiosity nudged him inside. The room was dimly lit and cluttered with forgotten equipment and dusty boxes. He shuffled through the disorganized piles, his fingers brushing over old engineering manuals and outdated circuit boards. Then, tucked beneath a stack of yellowed folders, he spotted something unusual, a rolled blueprint, its edges frayed but the lines still crisp. Unrolling it carefully on a nearby table, James's eyes widened. The blueprint depicted a complex schematic for an energy device unlike anything he had seen before. The design featured a compact reactor core surrounded by intricate conduits and what appeared to be a novel energy conversion system. A small note in the corner bore the date 1987, alongside the signature of a long-retired engineer, Thomas Calder. James traced the lines with his finger, captivated by the potential he sensed in the design. It hinted at an energy technology that could drastically reduce consumption and emissions, a breakthrough that Helix Innovations had shelved decades ago. He had heard whispers about the project, rumors of corporate politics and internal power struggles that led to its quiet abandonment. Lost in thought, James barely noticed the footsteps approaching until a sharp voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing in here?" Startled, James turned to see Mr. Daniels, his supervisor, standing in the doorway. The man's eyes narrowed as he took in the unrolled blueprint on the table. "You need to stay out of things that don't concern you, Carter. This isn't for janitors to be messing with." James felt the familiar sting of dismissal. "I'm just curious, sir. This looks important." Mr. Daniels' lips curled into a grimace. "Curiosity is a good thing, but knowing your place is better. Clean up this mess and get back to your duties." Before James could respond, Mr. Daniels' tone hardened. "If you're caught snooping again, there will be consequences." Swallowing his frustration, James rolled up the blueprint and tucked it beneath his jacket. As he left the storage room, the weight of the discovery settled heavily on his shoulders. The design was more than just old plans. It was a glimpse into a lost opportunity, one that could change everything if revived. Back in the break room, James pulled out the blueprint, spreading it across a small table. The hum of conversation faded as he studied the details, piecing together the innovations Calder had envisioned. The device promised a clean, efficient energy source, one that could disrupt the industry's status quo. Yet, James knew the path ahead would not be easy. The company's upper echelons had long buried this technology, and his role as a janitor offered little leverage. Still, the more he examined the plans, the more convinced he became that this was a chance worth pursuing. Later that day, as James swept the floor near the CEO's office, he overheard a heated discussion through the slightly ajar door. The voice belonged to Ethan Grant, the company's young and ambitious CEO. Ethan's frustration was palpable as he spoke to his executive team about the firm's recent struggles to innovate and stay ahead in a competitive market. James paused, heart pounding. If anyone could appreciate the potential of the blueprint, it was Ethan. But approaching a CEO was daunting, especially for someone in his position. Over the next several days, James returned to the storage room in secret, studying the blueprint whenever he could steal a few moments. He cross-referenced the design with modern energy theories, noting how ahead of its time the original concept had been. At night, he scoured online archives and engineering forums, piecing together the story behind the project's abandonment. One evening, as the building emptied and silence settled, James made a decision. He would take a risk and share his discovery with Ethan Grant. It would mean stepping far outside his comfort zone, but the potential rewards were too significant to ignore. The next morning, James waited near the CEO's office, rehearsing how he might explain the blueprint's significance. When the door opened, Ethan stepped out, his expression weary but alert. James approached him cautiously. "Mr. Grant," James began, his voice steady despite the nerves knotting his stomach. "I found something I think you should see. It's an old design for a new energy device, something the company worked on years ago but never developed." Ethan looked surprised, skepticism flickering in his eyes. "You're a janitor. Why would you have access to that kind of information?" James met his gaze, undeterred. "I came across it by accident in a storage room. I've been studying it, and I believe it could be the breakthrough Helix needs. It's unfinished, but the potential is huge." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, show me." They moved to a quiet conference room where James carefully unrolled the blueprint on the table. Ethan leaned in, scanning the intricate lines and annotations. His initial doubt gave way to intrigue as he absorbed the design's promise. "This is remarkable," Ethan murmured. "If this technology works, it could revolutionize the industry and save this company." James nodded, a spark of hope igniting within him. "I want to help develop it, if you'll let me." Ethan studied James for a moment, weighing the risks. "It's a long shot, but maybe it's time to take some chances. Let's explore this quietly for now." With that, an unlikely partnership was born. James, the janitor with a hidden passion for innovation, and Ethan, the visionary CEO seeking a way forward, began to chart a path toward reviving a forgotten dream. But the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. Corporate politics, skepticism from colleagues, and the sheer complexity of the technology stood as formidable barriers. Yet, for James, the chance to prove himself and make a real difference was worth every obstacle. As he returned to his duties that day, mop in hand, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. The janitor who once swept the floors in silence was now a guardian of a secret that could change everything, and he was ready to fight for it. In the days that followed, James Carter found himself navigating a world far removed from the quiet corridors he'd once known. His discovery had sparked something within Helix Innovations, a glimmer of hope in a company struggling to reclaim its edge. Yet the path was anything but straightforward. James worked discreetly, balancing his janitorial duties with secret sessions, poring over the blueprint alongside Ethan Grant. In a small, nondescript conference room bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp, the two men spread out engineering books, laptops, and the faded plans. Ethan's sharp mind dissected the technical diagrams while James contributed insights gleaned from his self-driven research and persistent curiosity. At first, Ethan had been skeptical. The idea of a janitor holding the key to a potentially revolutionary technology felt implausible. But as James explained the nuances he'd uncovered, the innovative energy conversion system, the compact reactor's design, it became clear the blueprint was more than just a relic. It was a blueprint for change. Still, hesitation lingered. This was shelved for a reason, Ethan remarked one evening, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Corporate politics, funding issues, technical hurdles. All those factors must have played a role. James nodded. Maybe, but it also means no one has tried a long time. What if we're looking at a missed opportunity that could save this company? Ethan smiled, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. All right, we'll see what we can do. But we have to be careful. If word gets out too soon, the board might shut us down before we even start. The following weeks became a delicate dance. Ethan authorized a small, covert team to revisit the project, pulling in trusted engineers who were discreet and open-minded. James, despite his position, was invited to collaborate, his knowledge of the blueprint invaluable. They worked after hours, away from prying eyes and corporate gossip. James's world shifted dramatically. From a janitor unseen and unheard, he was now part of brainstorming sessions, technical discussions, and prototype reviews. Yet, the transition was not without its challenges. Some colleagues eyed him with suspicion or outright disbelief when he appeared in meetings. Whispers followed him down hallways. How did a janitor get involved with this? And is this some kind of joke? Despite the skepticism, James remained steadfast. He had spent countless nights deciphering the blueprint, cross-referencing modern energy theories, and even suggesting modifications to enhance efficiency. His perspective, unburdened by corporate convention, brought fresh ideas that complemented the engineer's expertise. One evening, as they reviewed a simulation of the reactor's energy output, Ethan turned to James with genuine admiration. "You've done more than just spot a dusty old blueprint. Your insights have pushed this project forward in ways I didn't expect." James smiled, the weight of years of being overlooked lifting slightly. "I just want to see this work, to prove that sometimes the right idea can come from anywhere." But resistance simmered beneath the surface. Some executives, threatened by the project's potential disruption, sought to undermine it quietly. Rumors circulated that the initiative was a distraction, a waste of resources better spent on familiar, safer ventures. Ethan's leadership was tested as he defended the team's efforts against mounting pressure. During a tense meeting with the board, Ethan laid out the preliminary findings. "The technology James uncovered is groundbreaking. We have the chance to leapfrog our competitors and redefine energy consumption." A senior board member scoffed. "And you expect us to gamble on a janitor's discovery and a half-century-old blueprint? This is reckless." Ethan held his ground. "Sometimes innovation requires taking risks. We owe it to the company and its future to explore this fully." The board's response was cautious but non-committal. They agreed to a limited pilot, a small-scale test to evaluate feasibility without significant investment. It was a victory tempered by constraints, but it meant the project lived to fight another day. Meanwhile, James grappled with the duality of his existence. By day, he continued his janitorial duties, often slipping unnoticed through the office, mop in hand. By night, he became an integral part of a visionary team pushing the boundaries of technology. The contrast was stark, and James felt the weight of imposter syndrome creeping in. One evening, after a long session refining the reactor's control systems, Ethan caught James staring at the blueprint, deep in thought. "You all right?" he asked. James sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if I belong here. The engineers, the executives, they don't always see me as one of them." Ethan nodded knowingly. "I get it. But remember, it's your curiosity and courage that brought this to light. Without you, we'd still be stuck chasing incremental improvements. You belong here just as much as anyone else." Encouraged, James threw himself into the work with renewed vigor. The team made steady progress, overcoming technical setbacks and refining the design. Prototype components were fabricated in the company's workshop, and simulations began to show promising results. Word of the project's quiet progress started to leak beyond the inner circle. Investors expressed interest, sensing that Helix Innovations might be on the cusp of something significant. Media outlets hinted at a breakthrough, though details remained scarce. Yet, challenges persisted. Rival companies, wary of Helix's potential resurgence, ramped up their own research and sought to discredit the project. Internal saboteurs attempted to stall development by introducing flawed components and spreading misinformation. The team had to remain vigilant, protecting their work from both external and internal threats. Throughout it all, James and Ethan's partnership deepened. The CEO came to rely on James's insights and unwavering dedication, while James gained confidence and a sense of belonging he had never known before. One late night, as they reviewed test data showing the reactor core's stable energy output, Ethan turned to James with a grin. "This is just the beginning. If we can get this to market, Helix Innovations will not only survive, will lead the industry." James felt a surge of pride. The janitor who had stumbled upon a forgotten blueprint was now part of a movement that could change the world. Together, they had taken the first step toward turning a dusty dream into a revolutionary reality. The tension in the boardroom was palpable as Ethan Grant stood before the company's directors, the blueprint and prototype data spread out on the polished mahogany table. The room, usually a place of polished negotiations and cautious optimism, felt charged with an undercurrent of resistance. Many of the board members were entrenched in old ways, wary of the disruption the new energy technology could bring, not just to the company, but to the industry at large. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is an opportunity to change everything. The technology James discovered and the team has been developing could revolutionize energy consumption. It's cleaner, more efficient, and could position Helix Innovations as a leader in the global market. A murmur rippled through the room. Some faces betrayed curiosity, others skepticism. At the far end, Richard Stokes, a seasoned board member known for his conservative views and ties to legacy energy interests, leaned forward. Mr. Grant, you're asking us to invest heavily in a project based on a blueprint found by Janitor. This reeks of desperation. How can we trust the viability of something so unproven and so unconventional? Mit Stokisch Gage evenly. I understand your concerns, but we've moved beyond the blueprint. We have working prototypes, test data showing promising results, and a dedicated team. James Carter, whose curiosity led us here, has been instrumental in guiding the project. His insights have been invaluable. A few board members exchanged glances, surprised by the mention of James by name. The notion of a janitor playing a central role in a cutting-edge innovation was unsettling to some, inspiring doubt rather than confidence. Stokes scoffed. This is a distraction from our core business. I fear it will drain resources and attention from proven revenue streams. Ethan's voice grew firm. Sticking to the status quo is what's put us here, struggling to keep pace with competitors. If we don't take calculated risks, we risk obsolescence. The room fell into a heavy silence. Then, Margaret Lee, a younger board member with a reputation for embracing innovation, spoke up. I believe Mr. Grant makes a compelling case. Our industry is shifting rapidly, and we need new ideas. This project deserves a chance. The divide in the room was clear. The board's vote would be decisive for the project's future. As the discussion continued, Ethan called upon James to share the technical progress. James stood, heart pounding, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on him. He began to explain the design's uniqueness, the challenges they had overcome, and the potential impact. By harnessing a novel energy conversion process, James said, pointing to diagrams projected on the screen, we can achieve efficiency levels previously thought impossible. The reactor core operates at a stable output with minimal waste, making it both environmentally and economically viable. Some board members leaned forward, intrigued despite themselves. The room's atmosphere shifted subtly from skepticism to cautious interest. After a long and heated debate, the board adjourned to cast their votes in secret. Minutes later, the chairman announced the outcome. A narrow majority had approved a limited funding allocation to advance development and initiate a small-scale pilot. Ethan allowed himself a brief smile. It was a victory, but a fragile one. Back in the quiet of the conference room, James exhaled deeply. Thank you for standing up for this, Ethan. I know it wasn't easy. Ethan nodded. You earned your place here, James. This is just the start. Now the real work begins, proving that this technology can deliver on its promise. The pilot phase kicked off with cautious optimism. The team worked tirelessly, refining components, troubleshooting unexpected issues, and fine-tuning control systems. Progress was steady but met with obstacles, supply chain delays, equipment malfunctions, and the ever-present pressure from skeptical executives watching their every move. Beyond technical challenges, the project faced covert opposition. Certain factions within the company, threatened by the potential upheaval, sought to derail the initiative. James noticed subtle attempts to exclude him from meetings, question his contributions, and discredit his expertise. Whispers circulated, painting him as an opportunist overstepping his bounds. One afternoon, as James reviewed test results in the lab, a colleague named Mark approached, voice low. Be careful, James. Not everyone here wants this project to succeed. They see you as a threat. James met Mark's eyes, a mix of frustration and resolve stirring within. I'm here because I believe in this. If they want to stop us, they'll have to try harder. Ethan, sensing the mounting pressures, arranged a private meeting with James. I know it's tough, but remember, your knowledge and passion brought this to life. Don't let the noise distract you. They strategized ways to strengthen the team's position, documenting every success, seeking external expert validation, and quietly building support among key stakeholders. Meanwhile, the pilot's initial tests yielded promising results. The reactor prototype consistently produced stable energy outputs, with efficiency surpassing existing models. Internal reports highlighted the potential for significant cost savings and environmental benefits. Word of these developments began to reach select investors and industry insiders. Interest grew, signaling a turning point for Helix Innovations. Yet, just as momentum built, a crisis emerged. A critical component failed during testing, causing a temporary shutdown and sparking doubts about the project's viability. Opponents seized the opportunity to question the entire endeavor. Ethan convened the team urgently. "We can't let this setback define us. Find the root cause, fix it, and show them this technology's resilience." James threw himself into the investigation, cross-checking designs, simulations, and supplier quality controls. After days of intense work, they identified a manufacturing flaw in the faulty component and devised a solution. The repair was successful, and testing resumed with improved stability. The team's determination and transparency began to sway doubters. As the pilot progressed, Ethan and James prepared for a pivotal presentation to the board, aiming to secure full-scale funding. They knew this moment could make or break the project. In a late-night meeting, Ethan looked at James. "You've been the heart of this. Ready to take the stage?" James nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. "Let's show them what we've built." Together, they refined their pitch, combining technical rigor with a compelling vision for the future. They planned to highlight not only the technology's promise, but also the courage it took to challenge convention. The day of the presentation arrived, and the boardroom buzzed with anticipation. As Ethan and James stepped forward, the room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the duo who dared to believe in a janitor's discovery and a company's chance at rebirth. The tension in the boardroom was electric as James Carter stood beside Ethan Grant, preparing to present the fruits of months of tireless work. The atmosphere was thick with skepticism, whispers, and doubtful glances from some of the company's most influential executives. Yet, beneath the surface, a cautious hope flickered, a hope tied to the promise of the technology James had uncovered and the team had painstakingly developed. James cleared his throat, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. "Thank you all for being here. What we're about to show is the culmination of a journey that began with a forgotten blueprint and has grown into a viable, transformative energy solution." He gestured to the large screen where detailed schematics and test data illuminated the room. "The prototype reactor we've developed operates an unprecedented efficiency, producing stable energy output with minimal environmental impact." Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady and commanding. "Our pilot tests have demonstrated that this technology isn't just theoretical, it works. It has the potential to revolutionize how energy is generated and consumed, positioning Helix Innovations as a leader in sustainable technology." As they delved into the specifics, James explained the innovative energy conversion system, highlighting how the design overcame long-standing technical challenges. He addressed concerns openly, acknowledging the setbacks they had faced and how each obstacle had strengthened their resolve. Despite the thorough presentation, resistance remained. Richard Stokes, the board member who had been the project's most vocal critic, leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Mr. Grant, Mr. Carter, even if this technology works as you say, what guarantees do we have against unforeseen failures? The energy sector is unforgiving to risks, especially those involving unproven methods. Eten met stokkersgeest. No technology is without risk, but our extensive testing and simulations have minimized those uncertainties. More importantly, the potential rewards, technological leadership, market advantage, and environmental responsibility far outweigh the risks." Margaret Lee, ever the advocate for innovation, spoke next. "We have a responsibility to our shareholders and the planet to pursue solutions like this. The data supports moving forward. The room was divided, but the weight of the evidence and the passion behind the project began to tip the scales. After a long and intense discussion, the board voted to increase funding and grant full approval for scaling the project. Relief washed over Ethan and James, but they knew the real battle had only just begun. With resources secured, the team accelerated development. James transitioned from quiet contributor to lead innovator, coordinating engineers, overseeing prototype fabrication, and troubleshooting complex technical issues. His unconventional background and fresh perspective often challenged the status quo, sparking both admiration and envy among colleagues. Some coworkers whispered behind his back, questioning his qualifications and the legitimacy of his role. Yet, James remained unshaken, driven by the belief that innovation came from passion and insight, not titles. One afternoon, during a critical test run, James noticed irregular data readings. A vital component was overheating, threatening to derail the entire system. Acting swiftly, he coordinated with the engineers to isolate the issue, discovering a faulty cooling mechanism. The team worked through the night, redesigning the system and implementing safeguards. The setback was a blow, but the resilience and collaboration it inspired strengthened the project. As news of the breakthrough spread beyond Helix Innovations, investors and media began to take notice. The company's stock price reflected a newfound optimism, and partnerships with environmental organizations emerged, eager to support sustainable technologies. Yet beneath the surface, opposition lingered. Rival companies launched campaigns to discredit the project, spreading doubts about its feasibility and safety. Internal saboteurs attempted to introduce flawed components and misinformation to stall progress. James found himself navigating these challenges with a growing sense of responsibility. He worked closely with Ethan and trusted allies to document every success, secure intellectual property, and maintain transparency. One evening, as James reviewed reports in the quiet of the lab, Ethan approached. "You've handled the pressure remarkably," he said. "But remember, this is bigger than just us now. It's about the future of the company and the industry." James nodded. "I'm ready. We'll see this through." The team's perseverance paid off when the scaled prototype achieved consistent, reliable performance over extended periods. This success paved the way for plans to transition from testing to commercial production. In preparation, James and Ethan led efforts to train staff, refine manufacturing processes, and develop marketing strategies highlighting the technology's benefits. Despite the progress, James remained vigilant. He knew the path forward would be fraught with challenges from competitors, regulators, and skeptics. One afternoon, as the team celebrated a milestone, James caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd. Mark, a former colleague who had once warned him of internal resistance. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the ongoing battle. James's journey from janitor to innovator was far from over. But with every triumph and trial, he grew more determined to prove that innovation knows no boundaries and that passion and courage can reshape not just a company, but an entire industry. James Carter stood on the bustling stage of Helix Innovations' annual shareholder meeting, the spotlight illuminating not just the prototype reactor behind him, but the journey that had brought him here. The room was packed with investors, executives, and media representatives, all eager to witness the moment when the company would publicly acknowledge a technology that had once been dismissed as a long-forgotten dream. For the first time, James's role was no longer a secret. Introduced by Ethan Grant as the visionary who uncovered the blueprint that sparked the project, James stepped forward to share the story behind the innovation, his voice steady and confident. "When I first found the blueprint," James began, "I was just a janitor, someone who cleaned floors and emptied trash cans. But beneath those plans lay a vision, an opportunity to create something transformative. It wasn't easy to convince anyone to take a chance on an idea from someone in my position, but with determination and support, we turned that vision into reality." The crowd listened intently as James detailed the technical breakthroughs, the challenges overcome, and the promise of a cleaner, more efficient energy future. His personal journey resonated deeply, a testament to perseverance and the power of unexpected opportunity. As applause filled the room, Ethan took the stage again, announcing a new initiative inspired by James's story. The Helix Talent Accelerator, a program designed to identify and nurture untapped talent within the company, regardless of background or title. It was a bold step toward fostering innovation from all corners of the organization. Backstage, James felt a swell of pride mixed with humility. The recognition was a milestone, but his work was far from done. In the weeks that followed, the company's stock soared, buoyed by investor enthusiasm and positive media coverage. Partnerships with environmental groups and technology firms blossomed, setting the stage for broader adoption of the new energy technology. Yet, the spotlight also brought scrutiny. Some colleagues, previously skeptical or dismissive, now approached James with a mix of admiration and envy. Office whispers turned into conversations, and while many offered congratulations, others harbored resentment. James navigated these shifting dynamics with grace, focusing on a larger mission. He began mentoring employees from overlooked departments, sharing his story and encouraging them to pursue their ideas and ambitions. Amid the excitement, challenges persisted. Scaling production revealed unforeseen technical hurdles, supply chain complexities, and regulatory obstacles. The team worked tirelessly, iterating designs, optimizing manufacturing processes, and engaging with policymakers to ensure compliance and safety. One late night in the lab, James and Ethan reviewed progress reports. "We've come far," Ethan said, "but the next phase will test us even more." James nodded, eyes fixed on the glowing screens. "We have the momentum. We just need to keep pushing." Outside the confines of Helix Innovations, the industry buzzed with anticipation and competition. Rival companies scrambled to develop counter-technologies, regulatory bodies intensified oversight, and public expectations soared. James found himself at the center of media attention, invited to speak at conferences and participate in panels. He used these platforms to advocate for inclusive innovation and the importance of looking beyond traditional hierarchies to find fresh ideas. Despite the newfound fame, James remained grounded. He continued his routine walks through the building, greeting colleagues, and occasionally slipping into the storage room where it all began. The blueprint that had sparked this revolution still rested carefully preserved in a glass case, a symbol of potential waiting to be realized. As the company prepared to launch commercial production, James reflected on the journey from janitor to innovator. The path had been marked by doubt, resistance, and setbacks, but also by courage, collaboration, and unwavering belief. With the Helix Talent Accelerator gaining traction, James envisioned a future where stories like his would become commonplace, a world where innovation was fueled by diverse voices and unexpected champions. The road ahead remained challenging, filled with uncertainties and new battles. But James was ready, bolstered by the knowledge that even those once overlooked could reshape industries and inspire change on a global scale. James Carter stood in the modest office that had been transformed into the headquarters for the Helix Talent Accelerator, a program born from the very journey that had redefined his life. The walls were adorned with photos and stories of employees from all walks of life: janitors, administrative assistants, technicians, each with a spark of innovation waiting to be ignited. This was more than a mentorship program. It was a beacon of hope for overlooked talent. The room buzzed with quiet energy as James met with a group of young employees, their faces a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. He shared his story, not as a tale of overnight success, but as a testament to perseverance and the power of speaking up. He emphasized that ideas could come from anywhere and anyone, and that courage to pursue those ideas was what truly mattered. Outside the walls of the accelerator, Helix Innovations was undergoing a transformation. The company culture began to shift subtly but unmistakably. Managers encouraged open communication, and the old hierarchies started to give way to a more inclusive environment. Employees who once felt invisible found themselves invited to brainstorming sessions and strategic meetings. James continued to balance his time between the accelerator and the ongoing development of the energy technology. Despite the accolades and increased responsibilities, he remained grounded, often reflecting on the janitor he once was, the man who had discovered a blueprint and dared to dream beyond his station. Yet, challenges persisted. As the technology scaled, unforeseen complexities arose. Supply chain disruptions threatened production schedules, and regulatory hurdles demanded painstaking navigation. James worked alongside engineers, legal teams, and policymakers, bridging gaps and fostering collaboration. One evening, after a long day of meetings, James received a call from Clara Freeman, a senior engineer who had been instrumental in the project's success. "James, we've uncovered some discrepancies in the financial reports related to the technology's production costs. It looks like there might be some mismanagement or worse." Concern tightened James's chest. "We need to get to the bottom of this. The integrity of the project and the company depends on it." Together with Clara and a small team of trusted allies, James began a discreet investigation. They combed through documents, audited transactions, and interviewed staff. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became that some individuals were siphoning funds through shell companies and falsified invoices. The revelation was a bitter blow. Betrayal within the company threatened not just the project's future, but the trust that James and his allies had worked so hard to build. Determined to confront the corruption head-on, James compiled the evidence and presented it to Ethan Grant. The CEO's expression hardened as he absorbed the depth of the deceit. "This ends now," Ethan declared. "We'll bring those responsible to justice and restore faith in Helix Innovations." With the board's backing, they initiated an internal audit and involved external investigators. The culprits were identified: high-ranking executives and procurement officers who had exploited their positions for personal gain. The fallout was swift and uncompromising. Those implicated were suspended pending legal action, and the company instituted new safeguards to prevent future misconduct. James took on a leadership role in the overhaul, advocating for transparency and accountability. Amid the turmoil, the Helix Talent Accelerator became a source of stability and hope. Its mentorship programs expanded, reaching employees across departments and locations. Stories of personal growth and innovation multiplied, reinforcing the belief that true change came from empowering individuals. James found solace in these successes, even as he remained vigilant. He knew the shadows of corruption could linger, and the fight for integrity was ongoing. One afternoon, as James walked through the accelerator's workspace, a young engineer approached him, eyes bright with excitement. "James, I've been working on an idea for improving the reactor's efficiency. Can I get your feedback?" James smiled, recognizing the same spark that had ignited his own journey. "Absolutely. Let's hear it." As they huddled over sketches and calculations, James felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey that began with a discarded blueprint and a janitor's curiosity had blossomed into a movement, one that nurtured innovation, upheld integrity, and championed the overlooked. While challenges remained, James was confident that the seeds planted would grow into a legacy far greater than any single invention. The power of truth, perseverance, and opportunity was transforming Helix Innovations, and perhaps the world beyond. Months after the internal investigation had purged corruption from Helix Innovations, James Carter found himself standing before a new challenge, one that tested both his resolve and the very fabric of the company he had helped to transform. Reports had surfaced linking Samuel Lyle, a former operations director who had long since left the firm, to the fraudulent shell companies uncovered during the audit. The web of deceit ran deeper than anyone had imagined, threatening to unravel all the progress made. James sat in a confidential meeting with Ethan Grant and Clara Freeman, the senior engineer who had stood by him since the beginning. Clara's expression was grave as she laid out the evidence. Samuel not only orchestrated financial misconduct, but also manipulated vendor contracts to funnel money through those shell companies. He's been operating under the radar for years. Ethan clenched his jaw. "We can't let this slide. If Samuel's influence remains unchecked, It could undo everything. James nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle like a stone in his gut. We need to act swiftly and decisively. This isn't just about finances. It's about trust and the company's future. Together, they devised a plan to expose Samuel's involvement, working closely with legal counsel and external investigators. The operation was delicate. Samuel still had allies and resources at his disposal, and a misstep could lead to legal battles or public scandal. James took it upon himself to gather first-hand accounts, interviewing employees who had worked under Samuel and piecing together the extent of his influence. Each conversation revealed a pattern of intimidation, secrecy, and manipulation designed to conceal illicit activities. As the evidence mounted, James prepared to confront more than just a faceless adversary. He faced the embodiment of the very corruption Helix Innovations sought to overcome. The day of reckoning arrived when Ethan called a special board meeting to present the findings. James stood beside him, ready to testify. The room was thick with tension as documents, financial records, and testimonies were laid bare. Ethan's voice rang clear. We have irrefutable evidence implicating Samuel Lyle in a coordinated scheme to defraud Helix Innovations. His actions jeopardized our company's integrity and progress. Several board members exchanged uneasy glances, the magnitude of the betrayal sinking in. James stepped forward, his tone steady but resolute. This company has been through a transformation, one built on transparency, accountability, and inclusion. Allowing this corruption to persist would undermine everything we've fought for. The board voted unanimously to pursue legal action against Samuel Lyle and to implement enhanced oversight measures to prevent future misconduct. Outside the boardroom, James felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. The battle was far from over, but a decisive victory had been won. In the weeks that followed, Helix Innovations intensified its commitment to ethical practices. The Helix Talent Accelerator grew, fostering a new generation of innovators who embodied the company's values. James continued mentoring, his story inspiring countless employees to believe in their potential regardless of their role or background. The once invisible janitor had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and change. One afternoon, as James walked through the facility, he paused before a plaque commemorating the Integrity Initiative, a program dedicated to promoting honesty and accountability across the company. His name was etched alongside Ethan's and Clara's, a reminder of the collective effort to uphold what was right. Reflecting on his journey, James understood that true transformation was ongoing. It required vigilance, community, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. He thought back to that forgotten blueprint tucked away in the storage room years ago, a catalyst that had awakened his curiosity and set him on this path. From janitor to innovator, from silent observer to champion of integrity, James had come full circle. As he turned away, ready to face the challenges ahead, he carried with him the belief that even those once overlooked could spark profound change, that the power of truth, perseverance, and courage could reshape not just a company, but the world itself. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.